What are some of the most curious excuses scammers give on why they did what they did? Let's get right to it and start with number 5. Any other excuse. Santwon Antonio Davis from Georgia lied to his employer by claiming he tested positive for COVID. Davis lived with his mother and claimed she was exposed to someone that tested positive for COVID-19 and expressed his concern for her well-being. He texted his supervisor to warn him that his mother developed symptoms overnight and they were waiting for her test results. Then he texted his boss again, saying he had a fever and eventually that he and his mother tested positive for the virus. His employer asked him to send a medical excuse letter. As a result, Davis's employer had to shut down the plant for sanitation and place several other employees on paid leave while they quarantined. It ended up causing the company to lose over $100,000. The company's human resources manager reviewed Davis's medical excuse letter and found indications of fraud. It stated Davis was discharged before the COVID-19 pandemic began in November 2019, didn't have a signature, and didn't appear to be on formal letterhead. The company contacted the hospital where Davis claimed to have been tested and discovered the hospital wasn't conducting COVID-19 tests at the time. When Davis was unable to provide the requested test results, his employer fired him. Davis later admitted he never actually contracted the virus and pleaded guilty to wire fraud over sending his employer a fake medical letter claiming he had it. In court, the prosecution argued Davis caused unnecessary economic loss to his employer and distress to his coworkers and their families. Additionally, Davis submitted false information to a mortgage company where he fabricated his earnings and employment history. News reports about his fake COVID-19 diagnosis helped the company uncover the mortgage fraud. Santwon, if you wanted the day off, why didn't you just call in sick with any other illness? Number 4. Doctor pretend. Zholia Alemi pretended to be a psychiatrist despite having no qualifications and practiced medicine in the UK for over 22 years, making over $1 million throughout her career. Alemi initially registered in Britain in 1995 when she conned the medical community into believing she obtained her qualifications from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. She took advantage of a section of the Medical Act that allowed medical graduates from Commonwealth countries such as New Zealand to skip exams and rigorous documentation check. Why bother with rigorous checks? It's only healthcare. Alemi tricked the General Medical Council, known as the GMC, into granting her registration as a doctor. She then worked for various medical trusts across the UK. Although she claimed to have earned her qualifications at the University of Auckland, she never completed the 6-year Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery course. She also failed her exams before arriving in the UK 3 years later. Alemi's forged documents weren't issued by the University of Auckland and had several grammatical mistakes. If the GMC had noticed them earlier, they would have questioned the authenticity of her qualifications. It took them a long time to even notice. The fact that nobody caught the errors meant Alemi could practice medicine for 22 years and work for various health trusts. In 2003, Alemi became a member of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, but had to take part 1 of the exams 4 times and part 2 3 times before she passed. Alemi's fraud came to light when she changed an elderly client's will to make herself the beneficiary. Gillian Belham met Alemi at a dementia clinic in February 2016. At the time, Belham was 87 years old and in a vulnerable state. Alemi seemed to grow close to Belham, but within 4 months of meeting Belham, she redrafted her will and fraudulently applied for power of attorney. In the rewritten will, Alemi wrote out the charities Belham included in her old one and excluded her extended family. Belham was childless, and Alemi was set to inherit one of Belham's 2 homes and planned on holding the money from Belham's main property in a trust to benefit her grandchildren. Alemi also would have inherited $360,000. It wasn't the only time Alemi tricked people into handing her money. She also stole bank cards and tricked 2 other women into providing signatures they thought would be used for another purpose. The GMC removed her license to practice as a doctor in November 2018, and the Royal College of Psychiatrists terminated her membership within days of learning of her forgeries. Alemi initially denied her charges of 13 counts of fraud, fraud, 3 counts of obtaining a pecuniary advantage by deception, 2 counts of forgery, and 2 counts of using a false instrument. Alemi was found guilty of 4 fraud and theft charges after a week-long trial at Carlisle Crown Court, where she received 5 years in prison. She pretended to be a psychiatrist for 22 years, and not one actual Royal College psychiatrist noticed? Maybe they should change their name to the Royal Free Online Certification of Psychiatrists, so the name will be a bit more accurate. Number 3, the package thief. Mother of 2 and Army veteran Melissa Bergman went on a 2-day crime spree, stealing 28 packages from her neighbor's doorsteps. Bergman attributed her actions to a combination of psychiatric pills she was taking for her mental health troubles, including PTSD, after her time in the Army. She also cited being in an unhappy relationship with her controlling husband, where she felt trapped. While she was in the Army, Bergman encountered a string of misconduct. She admitted that during her years of service, she experienced numerous cases of misconduct from the men around her, including those in power. The long-term consequences of those difficult years caused the Army to recognize her as 100% disabled. Unfortunately, it did little to help her in court because at the end of the day, scamming is still scamming. Bergman attempted to plead insanity as her defense during the trial, but the judge rejected the plea as he was unwilling to accept it as a valid justification of her action. It also wasn't her first brush with the law. Before stealing the packages, Bergman pleaded guilty to felony charges of ID theft and credit card fraud. Despite pleading guilty to the charges, Bergman claimed that it all kicked off when she shared her marriage troubles with a man she had met at a hotel bar. He allegedly booked her several weeks in the hotel, handed her 3 credit cards, and told her to use them for whatever she wanted. Unsurprisingly, her victim told a very different story. He accused her of purposefully targeting him as he had been drinking. He believed that if he didn't have limits on his credit cards, she would have run up even much higher charges than she did. Bergman alleged she only spent $300 on baby clothes and gas, but security camera footage caught her shopping at Walmart, where she bought various items, including a large flat-screen TV. She also booked a 10-day cruise on Travelocity to escape her marital trouble. On top of all that, the victim also said that Bergman burst into his hotel room, demanding, let's just call it some massaging. Bergman's 5-year marriage collapsed after her criminal activities. Bergman was convicted on 12 out of 28 counts of theft she committed on July 27th and 28th of 2017. Her sentence was 180 days in jail, and she served 30 days in Warren County Jail, Ohio, while the remainder was suspended. She'll still be on probation for 3 years following her release. Number 2, packaged scams. Former travel agent Lynn Barlow conned hundreds of vacationers out of over $3 million in a scam she ran between 2019 and 2020. Barlow offered customers attractive deals on vacation packages through her independent travel agency. She told them their bookings were protected by insurance and claimed to be an association of British travel agents members, making herself look legitimate. She lured her customers with her glowing reviews on social media. However, when the time came for customers to go on their trips, they discovered their vacations had only been partially paid or not paid for at all. Some vacation goers had to pay extra for their hotels and flights home, while others arrived at airports to learn they didn't have seats on their flights or the airline canceled their bookings due to non-payment. When hordes of angry customers confronted Barlow, she went with the first excuse she could think of. She pretended to have stage 4 cancer. Barlow manipulated her customers, friends, and family by using the fake cancer diagnosis as an excuse to delay answering questions and to emotionally blackmail anyone she owed money to. Barlow went to great lengths to make her story believable and even cut her hair to give the impression she was undergoing chemotherapy. Not even her husband knew the truth. Her family took her to hospital appointments and supported her through what they thought was a difficult time. Local travel agents who couldn't compete with her unrealistic prices were suspicious that something was wrong. Some tried to warn people that Barlow was offering deals too good to be true. When they contacted her to confront her about her deceit, Barlow was unfazed and even attempted to recruit the agents to work for her. Ruining people's vacations is bad, but it's nothing life-changing, right? Well, it is a big deal if you're the McAlpine family. In February 2020, Shelley and Evan McAlpine were faced with the heartbreaking reality that their son only had months to live due to a life-limiting disability. The couple booked a week-long vacation at Center Parcs, a popular British resort, hoping to make precious memories with their family. They booked the trip through Barlow, who a friend highly recommended. Barlow assured the McAlpines she would handle all the logistics and relieve their stress. She told them all they needed to do was send her the money, and she would handle the rest. The couple paid her $3,600 and believed she would arrange everything for the vacation. Shelley asked Barlow for a receipt, but was suspicious when Barlow sent a very basic document with no company details or registered address. She contacted Barlow for further information, but Barlow stopped replying to her messages. Shelley reached out out to her friend who previously used Barlow's services and discovered Barlow wasn't answering the friend's calls either. A few days later, they learned Barlow had been arrested for fraud, and the family never got their vacation. Barlow manipulated over 1,000 people, and one of them was her own mother, Susan. After Barlow's father passed away suddenly, her mother received several insurance payouts, and Barlow positioned herself to control her mother's finances and swindled her mother out of $600,000. Flush with other people's money, Barlow spent it on vacations abroad and extravagant parties. Barlow also withheld Susan's mail, so she didn't know that her mortgage payments were late. Barlow claimed it was a clerical error and faked a letter from the bank confirming for her mother she was up to date with everything. Susan had no clue her house was in danger of being repossessed. As her mother's funds were running out, Barlow devised a new scheme and introduced the idea of people investing in her husband's business where they would get shares that would produce dividends. The investment company never existed, but she still persuaded a neighbor to give her $29,000 and a friend to hand over $121,000. Meanwhile, her mother was in a dire financial situation and had her utilities shut off. But many of these fake cheap vacations Barlow was selling had positive reviews, so how was she pulling any of it off? Barlow was essentially running a Ponzi scheme through her travel agency. Barlow used the money she stole from friends and family, including her mother, to subsidize the initially discounted vacations she offered customers. Barlow booked a 5-star all-inclusive golfing vacation in Turkey for $8,500 for Paul Stocks, his wife Elizabeth, and 2 other couples. They enjoyed the first few days of their vacation, but then the hotel manager told them Barlow only booked their trip for 3 nights and they would need to pay $3,400 a night per couple to stay for the entire duration. The couples couldn't afford the extra cost and were stranded without anywhere to stay. The police department received numerous complaints from people that fell victim to Barlow's scam. The overwhelming complaints prompted an investigation where officers uncovered the full extent of Barlow's fraudulent activities, resulting in her arrest. Barlow's husband was shocked and confused by his wife's fraudulent activities, having been completely unaware of the extent of her deceit. In court, Barlow admitted to stealing 10 counts of fraud and a money laundering charge from her mother. The judge sentenced her to 9 years in prison. Barlow's lawyer said she was now a penniless woman and that she apologized to all her victims. Before we get to number 1, if you're enjoying these stories, definitely stay on this video to watch our previous release about how this guy scammed all the elderly people around him. Number 1, serial shoplifting. Sophie Hunter Brown, an IT specialist at an elementary school, stole groceries from Asda, a popular British grocery store. Hunter Brown repeatedly stole groceries by using a self-checkout machine, inserting her card, and removing it before the payment was processed. Store employees knew her well due to her repeated thefts and displayed images from security camera footage all over the store's break room walls. Her crime spree ended when she appeared on the popular cooking show Come Dine With Me, where contestants host dinner parties and compete to win a cash prize. The network ran a repeat episode of the show where she was recognized. Hunter Brown told police she turned to crime because she couldn't afford to feed herself, even though in her episode of Come Dine With Me, Hunter Brown bragged about going out every night and made it seem like she was financially comfortable. She also was likely making a good salary considering her position. Hunter Brown had a hearing at the Education Workforce Council to examine her excuse for walking out with the groceries. She claimed she was unable and unsure how to work the self-service machines and it was a simple accident. But since she was an IT specialist and not a toddler, no one believed it. Hunter Brown then claimed she lied to the police in her statement because she was too busy for a court hearing. Aren't we all, though? The council found her explanations unconvincing and gave her a reprimand for 2 years. The council ultimately didn't fire Hunter Brown, but Asda, the grocery store chain, banned her from all their locations. She thought she had problems feeding herself before.
Daryl D. Davis came from humble beginnings from a small town called Bowie, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. He moved to the big city of Chicago to try and make it in the insurance business. He started out as a modest insurance salesman and quickly gained confidence in his financial knowledge. In 2005, he started moving up in the ranks. He started 2 firms, Financial Assurance Corps, FAC, in Chicago, and Affluent Advisory Group, AAG, in Los Angeles. By 2008, he was a self-proclaimed life coach, media personality, and investment advisor. Davis went on the public speaking circuit as a financial coach who pledged to help people invest their wealth and build a healthier relationship with their money. He also spoke to students from low-income communities through the I Have a Dream Foundation and gave them a quick course in investing, spending, and saving. Davis held other seminars about financial planning called the Smart Money Academy and the Smart Money Millionaire. He started a podcast called Wealth of the Nation about economic issues and became the vice chairman of Operation Hope, a nonprofit dedicated to teaching financial literacy to students. In 2009, he published a book about retirement savings called Economic Secrets of the New Retirement Environment. The book achieved moderate success and ranks number 6,740 on Amazon's best-selling books about retirement. It seemed like the perfect story about a self-made man who worked hard and got rich while helping his community learn about the economy and save for retirement. But in this story, Davis turned out to not be the hero, but the villain. Davis had carefully curated social media presence that showed him as a successful investor who mingled with celebrities, went to fancy clubs, drove sports cars, and traveled around the world. But above all, Davis liked to brag about how much he cared for the community. His Instagram bio describes Davis as a CEO, best-selling author, executive producer, and host. His Instagram page is sprinkled with pictures of him with Will Smith, Magic Johnson, Barack Obama, and other celebrities. His Pinterest describes him as an eradicator of financial illiteracy. He was respected in the investment industry and especially in Chicago and Los Angeles, where he owned and operated his two firms. The New York Times even quoted Davis in an article about retirement in 2011. Davis was also active in his faith community, a church in his hometown in Maryland. Many of his clients were church members, previous customers, or old friends. He offered them an exclusive opportunity available only to those close to him for an inside investment project with one of his firms, FAC or AAG. His customers saw Davis as a friend and fellow congregant who wanted the best for them. Davis saw the aging population as the perfect target. They saw Davis's success and were eager to let him invest their money if it meant that they could retire sooner or at least be able to make money during retirement. They trusted him. Many of his clients turned over their entire life savings to Davis. Davis touted himself as a seasonal financial advisor with over 20 years in the business. He guaranteed his clients that he would make them a profit and liked to prove his success with his fancy cars, brand name clothes, and lavish spending. Davis told his clients that they would receive fixed annual interest payments and protection against losses, that their investments would be backed by Alliance Insurance, a well-known international life insurance company. In written agreements with his clients, Davis agreed to look over their current investment portfolios and develop a new way to manage their assets in exchange for a fee. Davis and his investors pledged to work with each other to achieve their financial goals. Some clients sold other assets, believing that Davis's investments would offset or even surpass these losses. From 2013 to 2018, at least 30 people from Illinois, Pennsylvania, California, and Washington, D.C. trusted Davis with their life savings. But instead of earning money for his elderly clients, Davis spent it all. From 2003 to 2017, Davis took more than $5 million from his clients. He did this by recommending and selling securities that he called corporate bond notes with guaranteed interest rates between 7 and 20%. Other investment products offered a bonus 5 to 8% if the investor allowed the note to fully mature. In 2012, Davis started selling a multi-year guarantee bond or multi-year interest guarantee account that promised interest rates of 6 to 10% with an additional cash bonus for the initial deposit. He used different names to market this type of investment and was almost never consistent in his promotional material. Davis offered flexibility with this newer investment option, allowing clients to choose 1, 2, or 3-year terms. The deal was that if they chose longer terms, they would receive higher interest payments in return. Davis created brochures and flyers about all of his investment products, using the logos and trademarks of Alliance and his other corporate partners. Davis had his clients sign documents that promised their money would be backed by Alliance Insurance and held by Wells Fargo. The documents also claimed that Davis's firms were affiliated with Nationwide Financial. Davis marketed a variety of investment plan options, like the Capital Preservation Plus account that promised large profits plus the ability to withdraw the invested money at any point. The incentive to invest with Davis was the promise for stock market-like growth without the instability or potential losses that come with the real stock market. Davis promised to make profits through the sale of corporate bond notes by AAG or FAC. Investors paid for the Davis securities mainly through personal checks made out to FAC or AAG or wire transfers to the firm's bank accounts. All accounts were owned and controlled by Davis. He was able to withdraw and deposit funds at will. When one investor asked Davis for her money, he told her that he couldn't give it to her because it was invested in a bond portfolio with the company Dimension Funds Advisors. She later found out that this firm didn't exist. And it gets worse, much worse. Davis was lying to investors the whole time about the status of their corporate bond notes. In fact, there were no corporate bond notes. So when they asked for their money back, he said he couldn't repay them because the bond portfolio wasn't liquid, in addition to many other excuses. In fact, Davis didn't have any corporate bond notes or invest in bond portfolios. His investors' money never even made it to FAC or AAG. It went straight into his personal pocket. The companies that were supposed to back his clients' investments, like Alliance Insurance, never had any involvement in Davis's business. Davis had no accounts at Wells Fargo and instead used Chase Bank and Bank of America. Alliance Insurance had no record of FAC or AAG in their partnerships. Nationwide Insurance did not have an affiliation with Davis or any of his firms. The documents he made were completely fictitious. All of his brochures were made without the other company's permission and were made with copy and pasted logos and trademarks that he had no right to be using. In summary, Davis sold fake investment products using the names of real companies and insurers in order to steal from his clients. He did not keep records of his investors' specific contributions or even keep the funds in separate accounts. Davis never had any actual investment products to sell. To keep his investors from asking questions, Davis typed and sent fake account statements to customers, showing profits of thousands of dollars per month. One client was a retired U.S. Postal Service employee who handed over more than $200,000 of his retirement savings to Davis in 2015 for investment purposes. Davis sent him false statements showing a 30% profit over 17 months. Of course, none of this profit was real, and all of his money was used for Davis's personal expenses and to pay off other investors. This man lost all but $15,000 of his retirement savings through Davis's Ponzi scheme. Another client lost more than $650,000 in retirement savings. Another client was a widow who was trying to schedule a brain surgery at the Cleveland Clinic in 2016. She needed money for the procedure and frantically contacted Davis asking if he could return her investment. But when she tried to get her money back, he came up with phony excuses about why he couldn't return it to her. In addition to the financial lies, Davis was also lying to the youth of America. He said that his Smart Money Academy, his financial planning workshop, was accredited by Advance ED, a nonprofit organization for preschools and K-12 programs. It later came to light that the Smart Money Academy was never accredited by Advance ED, like Davis claimed. Davis controlled all of the FAC and AAG accounts where investors deposited their money. He transferred funds between these accounts and other entities whenever he wanted. He used some of the money he received from new investors to pay off other investors who were asking for their money back. Records show that Davis used more than $1 million in new investments to pay off old investments. He spent the rest of the funds on advancing his scheme and financing a luxurious life. Some of the $5 million stolen from investors went towards maintaining the FAC and AAG office buildings, web hosting services, and utilities. This allowed Davis to maintain appearances so potential investors would believe that Davis and his products were legitimate. Davis also used the money to market his Smart Money Academy and pay for his participation in small business expos. Perhaps the most shocking use of investors' money was the at least $500,000 used to rent an 8-bedroom mansion in the Hollywood Hills, a home previously rented by celebrities. It cost $40,000 per month to rent. He spent $100,000 on airline tickets and $40,000 on luxury hotels. Other money was used to rent a home in Maryland and pick up the tab at nightclubs, not to mention the Lamborghini, Ferrari, and Rolls-Royce car rentals. Davis also used clients' money to join the Bronze Buffalo Club, an exclusive Western-themed sports club with a high price tag. He used another $700,000 to pay off personal credit card bills. He spent nearly all of his investors' money, leaving them without any retirement or life savings. In 2017, the SEC filed a civil complaint against Davis and AAG, saying that he sold himself as a financial services professional, but was actually running a Ponzi scheme. The SEC won a default judgment against him in 2018. Then, the FBI opened an investigation into Davis and his firms after two of his Chicago clients, a married couple, filed a complaint. Davis violated court orders by opening new bank accounts, signing up for credit cards, incorporating a new business entity, and sending his mother to the ATM to withdraw cash on his new cards. He did all of this while lying to the SEC, FBI, and federal court. He was indicted in June of 2018, and his assets were frozen. Still, Davis continued to persuade investors to believe in him and his investment products. Just months before he stood trial, Davis collected $150,000 and used some of this to repay other investors who were demanding their money back. In May of 2021, Davis took the stand in a trial by jury in the Northern District of Illinois. He pleaded guilty to mail fraud in connection to the crime. Judge Robert Gettleman sentenced him to 160 months in federal prison, 13 years and 4 months for defrauding clients out of more than $5 million. While it might sound like justice was served for Davis, the villain, so many of his victims are still without the retirement funds and life savings they've been working hard for their entire lives.
Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you would rather have to deal with: having a package stolen off your porch or having money scammed from your credit card.